What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. I am your host, theFellowKGB. You can follow me on Twitter at theFellowKGB. And today it's Sunday. I think it's August 23rd. It's about 12:30 in the afternoon. We're doing a mock draft here on ESPN. We're going to be drafting from the third spot. I keep working my way down. I've done videos from 12 all the way down to 3. I just have 3, 2, and 1 left. If you'd like to see another mock draft that I've done in the past, but a little bit updated, let me know in the comments below, and I can redo a mock draft for you. I get a lot of views on my 8 spot mock draft. I think that's the green button ESPN one, but we can always redo those. So let me know. But we're drafting from the third spot today. We can enter the draft lobby here. Looks like it's probably going to start up in a couple minutes. And so we got about 2 minutes here. We're drafting from the third spot. We're going to be ending up taking a running back, but looks like I got a couple minutes here just to kind of talk about a couple things here on my mind. So we got 2 more weekends we got 2 more weekends where we can draft fantasy, do our fantasy draft. So I'm going to be trying to put out a video every day the rest of the way. So check out a lot of the stuff I've been putting out. I also have my team projections available in the link below in the description. You can access these projection documents through Patreon. And basically, I got all these, you can't see it because of the banner on the bottom, but this document, it has team projections for every team. And then once you can scroll to the back of the document, and then you can view individual positions. So running backs, receivers, tight ends, and then I break them down by flex. And then I also got my tiers, just some more PPR tiers, and then some other things back here in the documents. A lot of stuff in here. You can also access that's only $10 on Patreon. You can actually go to thefantasyfellowship.com, check out the redraft rankings tab, and that should be everything you need, whether it's PPR, half PPR, or standard. But I just updated those on the 21st. So that was Friday. What I do is I update these things daily, and that's what's cool about this Google Sheets document, is that it's constantly updated. So anytime something gets updated, if you have access to the document, it's updated in real time. So otherwise, I'm going to be updating my rankings next Friday, and then the Friday before that, before each weekend. So stay tuned for those. And then, if you're not following me on Twitter, go ahead and follow me on Twitter. That's probably the easiest way to contact me, or you can leave a comment in the Twitter or the YouTube stuff below. But I think it's easier to reach out to me and talk and interact with people on Twitter. You can DM me. We can talk draft plans, strategies, whatever you need. It looks like our draft is starting here.
Welcome to the best day of the year.
So it's going to be Christian McCaffrey, of course. That's pretty much the de facto RB1. We get to decide between Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara. I think he is a little bit higher on my projections, but this one's pretty much a no-brainer for me. I think I got Barkley as the number 2, so I'm going to go ahead here and just draft Saquon Barkley at the 3 spot. I think that's it's weird because you kind of do these in blocks, and that's what's cool about. I'm probably going to be recording another video today that'll upload tomorrow. I didn't talk about this. My 2020 content tab. If you go to cheat sheets, you can actually download my cheat sheets. I got each PPR, half PPR, and standard, and then I'm working on this tiers document where all you got to do is just click tiers, and then you can download, print it. These are all printable sheets. 8.5 by 11. But this is the first edition of the tiers. I'm going to be working on this. I'll be uploading this again every Friday. The cheat sheets will be uploaded then. But I'm working on a way to kind of figure out how to tier these guys. So I kind of have like this big group of running backs here, the top receivers here. These guys are all first round, kind of picks. But I'm going to be putting out a video of basically me recreating my tiers. I think that would be a really helpful video for some of you guys. So that's going to be something to keep an eye out for. But anyways, we got the scrolly bar down here of players coming in. So of course we'll recap here: McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott. We got Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, and Michael Thomas. I kind of wish I could do another mock draft in like the 6, 7, 8 spot, because I think the middle rounds, it's honestly probably my favorite spot to start. I know a lot of people want to get one of those top running backs, being a top 5 pick. But to me, I think the most valuable running back right now in the first round is Derrick Henry. I don't really need to sell you guys on Saquon Barkley. It's great that we got him, but I'm kind of just starting to just give more takes throughout these videos. So with Derrick Henry, one thing I do is I Google a player's name and add FF today, and it's going to take you to their fantasy stat sheet. So we see Derrick Henry last year averaged 20 points per game. over 1,500 rushing yards, 16 touchdowns, only 18 receptions. But this was a career high receptions, career high targets, career high yards, career high receiving touchdowns. Um, so you see here in the playoffs, this is the numbers that I think we can be looking for. So on a worst game basis, he's going to be able, to get maybe 12 to 14 points. You just kind of ride out some of these lows. But I mean, once Ryan Tannehill took over, it was, everything just broke loose for Derrick Henry. And same thing at the year before. But if you look at the depth chart here, rookie Darrington Evans, Kerry Blossomgame, and Senoris Perry, I'm starting to think that Derrick Henry might set new career highs in his receiving workload this year. Let me go here. So if you look, we mentioned this is the 2019 stats for the Titans. Blossomgame was on the roster last year, only 5 career targets. And Dalen Dawkins, is he still on the team? Let me see the depth charts here. They don't have it on here, but Senoris Perry is another guy that's been kind of on the team for a while. But really, no one has caught passes behind Derrick Henry in the NFL. Blossomgame is the only one that I got logged here for 5 targets. And so I really don't know if we can expect this rookie Darrington Evans. Like, I got him going for 30 targets. That seems a little optimistic to me. So I might be upping Derrick Henry's receiving totals here, and that's probably going to push him a little bit higher up my board. So I'm all in on Derrick Henry right now. So we're getting almost up to pick here. I'll kind of recap where we left off. So Michael Thomas went 6th overall. Derrick Henry went 7th. Clyde Edwards 8th. Devontae Adams 9. Nick Chubb 10. Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake, Miles Sanders, Austin Eckler. So it's this big rush of running backs. So if we look at my tiers real quick, basically I have the first 6 running backs. I wouldn't be surprised if these are the first 6 picks off the board. That's probably how I would pick them. And then I have a case that I would take all 4 of these receivers over these running backs, because I just feel a little bit more like these guys feel like, lock, fire, wide receiver ones, top 5 upside, and all of those guys. Whereas these running backs here, they don't really have top 5 RB potential at the running back position, but they could be, they're really good bets for running back ones. So I don't blame you for these guys, but to me, I like taking any of these guys as my RB2s. If I can get one of these guys and pair them with one of these, that's probably how I would prefer to do that. So here we go. We're moving into round 2. Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon. We're almost up to pick here. So basically, we're going to miss the boat on my running back tier. If you look here, it looks like we missed out on pretty much all of these guys already. So running backs are being pushed high up the draft boards. I really do like Kenyon Drake and James Conner, but it looks like we missed the boat on Kenyon Drake. So James Conner, he's one of the guys that I think you have to keep an eye on him. He's down here low. He's really low in a lot of ADPs. And I have him as a 3rd round pick. If any of you guys know on Twitter, Dwayne McFarland, you guys can follow him. But he just put out a really good 2-hour video of how his draft process works. And he basically just co-signed James Conner. Every week that Conner is healthy, he's an RB1. So looks like we're up to pick here. And this is almost like the worst possible situation for us, because I really don't know what to do here. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, George Kittle, Kenny Galladay, DJ Moore. The receivers are really, really juicy here. The tight ends are going to probably fall off here after that. So we missed the boat on running back. These receivers are all good. They're all, maybe top 10 potentials. So I think what I'm going to do here is, all right, we're going to try something a little crazy. We're just going to go with George Kittle. So we locked in our tight end. So we got Saquon Barkley and George Kittle. I haven't been taking a lot of tight ends, but at this point in the draft, it's kind of just how things fall. If we look at my tiers here, where did I have George Kittle? So, I got George Kittle and Travis Kelce going in the mid-second. So that's a little bit of a value. I have them over these, basically the second tier of receivers, Godwin, DJ Moore, Robinson, Galladay. That's when I start to think about one of the top tight ends. So that's what we did. And now we have the opportunity to snag a wide receiver. But I really have to think about this, because I know we're probably not going to like the running backs when they get back to us at pick 46. But I'm a big fan of DJ Moore. If you want to draft DJ Moore, he's probably my favorite guy. I love Chris Godwin. I love Allen Robinson, Adam Thielen. These first 5, 4 receivers here, These are all some of my favorite receivers to draft. You still got Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. A lot of these guys are still on the board, but to me, if you filter by running back, it's ugly. And to me, the best one available is James Conner. Any week that James Conner is healthy, he is going to be the guy that, he's got top 5 upside. He's got a really good defense, and as Ben Roethlisberger is healthy, it's just going to be a good time. So I'm going to do something a little different here. I'm going to take James Conner in the third. And basically now we locked in Saquon Barkley. He's not moving from our lineup at all. Every week he's in there. We know he's in there. So now we got James Conner, and we know that any week that James Conner is healthy, maybe it's 10 games, maybe it's 12 games, maybe it's 16 games. But we know that any week Conner is healthy, we're putting him in the RB2 spot. So we really only need maybe 1 to 2 more running backs. So we'll wait on those guys. And now this draft has set us up to feast on receivers in the meat of the draft. So rounds 4, 5, 6, 7, we might take 4 straight wide receivers here, which is probably my preferred way to draft so far this year. So we're going to be getting a lot of names here, and I do like there's so many good receivers in the middle rounds, and I think for roster construction, your first 6, 7 rounds, those are the most important rounds because you're drafting starters for your team. So you probably want to come away with at least 3 running backs, and if you can get one of the top, I think it's a top 4 tight end group this year. With Kelsey, Kittle, Ertz, and Mark Andrews. I think those guys are the ones that have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. If you don't get a top 4 tight end, you wait and you take 2 guys that are in the 16th and 17th ranked tight end or something. So you go like that. So we know we don't really need to worry about a backup tight end. We got George Kittle. Starting running backs are set. We could use an extra running back, but we don't have to reach on one now. We can kind of get, some PPR scat back kind of players. So we will be looking heavily at the wide receiver position here in the middle rounds. But let's kind of recap what we've been doing here. So we ended up taking James Conner in the third. You see Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Chris Carson, Allen Robinson, Adam Thielen, Leonard Fournette, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, Cooper Kupp. So we're almost up to pick here. I'm just kind of looking at my tiers here. So yeah, you see I kind of have James Conner somewhere in this mix where I have him as, if you go by round, I have him as the third pick in the third round. So I have him over these receivers right now because I just think he's more valuable than people realize. The Steelers have one of the best offensive lines in the game. They have one of the best defenses in the game, if not the best defense right now. And Mike Tomlin, man, he gives the bell cow, RB1 in Pittsburgh. That's just kind of how it's always been. And if you look at so James Conner last year, only 1 game with Ben Roethlisberger, whatever. But the fact that he was able to put up these, I think he got hurt week 11 and week 16. I think he left early those games. But every week that he played, 10.5, 13.5, 9.7, 26.5, 11.5, 30.9, 24.0, 15.1. So these boom games, you really can't find those very easily the rest of the draft. So I think I've kind of advocated that wide receiver 3 or round 3 is a wide receiver round, but I'm really starting to come on to James Conner, and maybe in 2 weeks by now, I might have pushed James Conner into the second round, and I might end up pushing Kenyon Drake and James Conner into this massive RB. We're just going to do that right now. So these guys, to me, I'm pretty sure James Conner's got RB2 upside at the least, and any week that he's healthy. If you're worried about injury risk with a player like James Conner, I get it, but it's not as severe as a guy like Todd Gurley or some of the other running backs, in that round. So I don't like the running backs here. We'll just do a due diligence and check everybody out. I love Russell Wilson at quarterback. We're not going to look at tight end, but wide receivers, man. I love McLaurin. I love Metcalf, Tyler Boyd, Michael Gallup. So we got a lot of good players here. A.J. Brown, we're going to go ahead and here and just take A.J. Brown because we're going to be kind of going this in tandem. I think I have A.J. Brown somewhere here. He's here as my wide receiver 15 in that tier. I do have Terry McLaurin somewhere around here. So I have McLaurin, Metcalf, Gallup. Like these are probably the next few guys that we're going to want to target. So I know AJ Brown's a little bit boom bust of a pick, but we're getting him at the end of the 4th round. And I just put out a really interesting video. Was it yesterday? It's all about importance. It's called important stats you need to know for fantasy. And for a wide receiver, the most important stat is total yards. And if you filter here by receiving yards, that's going to put AJ Brown here as a top 10 receiver option. And if you filter by yard share, which is the total amount of yards a player gets within his offense, that means AJ Brown is the 6th best receiver in terms of that stat. So that's a really interesting way of looking at things. I highly recommend checking out that video. I talk about running backs, tight ends, and a couple other interesting stats to look at that I like to look at. So we're on deck here. DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, 2 of my favorite receivers. We're going to take one of those 2 guys. The thing with Terry McLaurin is, yes, Washington is going to be bad. We do not really trust Dwayne Haskins. Whereas DK, like if we look at my projections real quick, I got Metcalf here at 21, and I got McLaurin here at 15. The difference is McLaurin at 134 targets, Metcalf at 112. Difference of about 100 yards. I have Metcalf with more touchdowns. I'm going to do something a little different here. We're going to take DK Metcalf. So we just took AJ Brown and DK Metcalf. We got the Ole Miss wide receivers here throwing hammers. Hopefully, if one guy busts one week, hopefully it's DK Metcalf getting the 120 yards and a touchdown. So we're kind of going like super boom busty here, but I really like the look up of this team. AJ Brown, DK Metcalf. There's a pretty good chance that both of these guys finish as top 15, top 20 wide receivers. So we have a little bit of a wait time here to get another pick here, but we're probably still going to be looking at wide receivers. And I just want to monitor the quarterbacks. Don't be afraid to pull the trigger on a quarterback early. I know a lot of people like to wait, but if you can get, for some reason, Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson are ranked below Watson and Kyler Murray, which I think is wrong. I got quarterbacks rankings here of Dak and Russell Wilson, and then it's Tom Brady, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson. So these are my top 4 quarterbacks. And if you look at this number here, 351.1 for Russell Wilson, and then it's a drop off of about 30 points. So I really don't think Dak and Russell Wilson are that far off of Lamar and Patrick Mahomes. So if I'm going to take a quarterback early, it's going to be Prescott or Russell Wilson. And it sounds like Seattle's going to open it up in the passing game a little bit more. I think the running backs are a little bit dinged up. I still like Chris Carson, but he feels a little bit more of a risk in the 4th round, where I'd prefer to take a guy like AJ Brown, a guy like DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, guys that I know I just feel a little bit more confident in. So after we took DK Metcalf in the 5th round, you see Zach Ertz. We could have taken that probably would have been a good value for Zach Ertz there. That's great value, actually. DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, Kareem Hunt, DJ Chark, Mark Ingram, David Montgomery, Ronald Jones, one of my favorite running backs to take, Terry McLaurin, and Will Fuller. So we're moving around here. I really don't know what we're going to do, but these quarterbacks are beginning to look really interesting. If any, like in the back of the 6th or the 7th, we might play a little bit of roulette here and see if we can snag Prescott or Wilson. And what's cool is we do already have DK Metcalf. So if we take a guy like Russell Wilson, that means anytime Lockett scores, we still score. And anytime Metcalf scores, it's like the double deuce touchdown. So those are kind of exciting. I don't always recommend stacking quarterback and receiver, but in that situation, Russell Wilson, he's going to throw touchdowns to Tyler Lockett. He's going to throw touchdowns to DK Metcalf, and there's going to be sprinkles in between. So, wow, we just saw Philip Lindsay go 4th pick of the 6th round. So we see Michael Gallup, one of my favorite wide receivers in the 6th, Stephon Diggs, and Philip Lindsay. You used to be able to get Philip Lindsay in the 9th, 10th round, but there's been talks about Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay kind of splitting, almost 50-50 down the middle, which is concerning. Because I used to like Melvin Gordon when I thought it was going to be more of a 60-40 split, but now not so much. So we're almost up to pick here. These quarterbacks are just falling like nothing. I can't believe this. So we're probably going to target a quarterback here at our 75th overall pick. Let's take a look at the wide receivers. The fact that Tyler Boyd and Deontay Johnson are still on the board, though, this might change our thinking here because we were a little bit light on receivers, and we still have 2 really good running backs. where now we can kind of figure out, okay, the table is getting set. We're good at tight end. We need some receiver depth. This player that we select next is going to be our flex. So this guy is going to be starting for us quite a bit this year. So I still like Tariq Cohen, James White, J.K. Dobbins, Zach Moss, um, and there's like some bye week fill-in. So we're probably going to do the weird punt here at the running back position. We're going to probably fill this flex here with Tyler Boyd. AJ Green, man, we can't trust him. He's already got the hamstring flare up. We don't know how severe it is, but the fact that he's not practicing, I don't like it. I don't really want any part of AJ Green. And Tyler Boyd's going to live in the slot. If you think about what Joe Burrow excelled at LSU, it was with Justin Jefferson in the middle of the field. I know he had Jamar Chase going deep as well, which also means good things for John Ross potentially. But I really, really like Tyler Boyd. I think he was wide receiver 17 last year, and he had like 148 targets, which is definitely going to come down. But the fact that I think he's been a top 20 wide receiver the last 2 years, with AJ Green kind of in and out of the lineup in 2018. But you see Tyler Boyd here, wide receiver 17 last year, 90 receptions, over 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then in 2018, where I think AJ Green he probably played maybe 8 or 9 games. But again, Tyler Boyd, super efficient with his targets, 76 receptions, over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. I think this might be a stat line that we can expect from Tyler Boyd this year. So, the 108 targets compared to 148 last year, it might be somewhere in the middle, but I definitely feel like it's going to be over 108. So then I think, one of my next favorite players to target is Deontay Johnson. I know we're going to have 2 Steelers players, but Deontay Johnson's been inching up my draft boards. If we look at where he is now, he's wide receiver 30. So he's a really interesting target for me. I do like Julian Edelman here, but let's just look at these quarterbacks. The fact that Murray, Prescott, Wilson are still available, it kind of blows my mind. But basically, if we take this rookie or his second-year wide receiver, Deontay Johnson, we might be pretty good for a while, and we might not have to worry about wide receiver. So we're going to go ahead here and take Deontay Johnson. Let's take a look at some of his numbers. So as a rookie, Deontay Johnson finishes – this is 2018, my bad. Let's take a look here. Deontay Johnson. So his rookie season, wide receiver 40. That's pretty impressive with a dysfunctional quarterback room. So 92 targets, 59 receptions, 680 yards, 5 touchdowns, 10.1 fantasy points per game. So yes, it was kind of all over the place, but you have to, realize that he was playing with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph. But you see down towards the end of the year, he kind of got consistent. So I'm really excited about this receiver. If you guys are familiar with Matt Harmon's work, one of the wide receiver gurus of the fantasy football community, but I was just listening to one of his guest appearances on a podcast by Establish the Run, but Matt Harmon was talking about what some of his favorite receivers to target, which it's a really good podcast. I would recommend checking that out. If you just typed in Establish the Run, Matt Harmon, you could probably find that, but it's strictly a wide receiver episode. And he's saying that he's got Deontay Johnson going over 1,000 yards. So I was I was already interested in Deontay Johnson, but when I heard that, basically when someone agrees, someone that I respect, when their opinion aligns with mine and their opinion is even greater than mine was, that's when it feels really good. And I kind of just fall into that pick where I already had good feelings about the player, and now I'm getting confirmation elsewhere from someone's opinion that I look up to. So basically all the bells and whistles are going off. So we're looking really good here. Saquon Barkley, RB1. He's not moving from our lineup except on bye week. James Conner, any week that he's healthy, if we can get 13, 14 games out of James Conner and have him healthy for the playoff push, we're going to be in really, really good shape. A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Tyler Boyd, and Deontay Johnson. That seems like we had enough to work with at wide receiver position. It's going to be a little bit more boom and bust, but I think A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf, those guys can complement each other. And then you got Tyler Boyd, who's a really steady PPR floor guy. And same with Deontay Johnson. I think he's going to be more consistent this year. So we got 2 high upside guys, and maybe their bad games are 6 or 7 points. But Tyler Boyd and Deontay Johnson, they're going to be a super steady 10, 12 points where we feel really safe about starting those guys each and every week. And then, of course, they got the boom weeks when they score the touchdowns. So everything is set up pretty well here. We're looking at the quarterbacks. Tom Brady's my fifth ranked quarterback. Um, I've been I've been really feasting on the Tampa Bay offense this year. So Tom Brady, my quarterback five. I'm into Matt Stafford, Matt Ryan, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers. I think I'd like to get maybe one of these guys because these guys. So one of my favorite quarterback strategies is I don't like to take a top five quarterback that's ranked, top five, unless he falls to a certain point. Then it's just like, okay, you have to do it. But one of my favorite things is to think about the quarterback position and try to figure out which quarterback, being drafted outside the top five is most likely or has one of the best chances to finish in the top five. So it's guys like Tom Brady, maybe Josh Allen, even Stafford, even Rodgers. I think people are sleeping on the Green Bay Packers offensive year, Matt Flores year two as a head coach. And again, Devontae Adams was missing 4 games last year. They got rid of Geronimo Allison, so we're going to see these third-year receivers step up, hopefully, with Alan Lazard, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Equanimeous St. Brown, and they got a lot of running backs to throw the ball to and a lot of tight ends. So I think Green Bay is going to be difficult to defend. And then all those rushing touchdowns that we saw Aaron Jones get last year, I think some of those might slide back to the passing column. So, Rodgers was quarterback 9 last year, and everyone's kind of writing him off already, but I think he's going to have a hell of a year and even be better this year. Again, year two of that system. So we're up to pick in a second here. Let's just take a look at our running backs. Jordan Howard, Matt Breida, J.K. Dobbins. I think Dobbins might be the pick. Let's just do our due diligence. Tight end, we're not interested. Wide receivers, I like Sterling Shepard. I love Golden Tate. I love Preston Williams. But again, I think we're okay now where we can kind of move around here. We could even take a quarterback. If we wanted Tom Brady, we can get Tom Brady. If we wanted Josh Allen, we can get Josh Allen. So, but I think I'm going to pivot here, and I'm going to take the rookie running back here, J.K. Dobbins. So he's going to be our backup plan. Again, he was probably my favorite rookie running back coming out to watch. I think I had him ranked higher than Jonathan Taylor. So he was my RB1 in the draft this year, and then he lands into literally outside of Clyde Edwards-Helaire because of the passing situation. J.K. Dobbins lands in the best case scenario for his future, being paired with Lamar Jackson, a really good defensive football team, and a really good offensive line. So the Ravens, man, they're easily one of my favorite teams to watch on Sundays right now. And I just think, at this point in the draft, the ninth round, we get J.K. Dobbins for free, and we should slowly see him cut into Mark Ingram's workload as the season progresses. So I love everything about J.K. Dobbins. I wish we could have got Zach Moss, but that's okay. There's a couple other running backs that I do like here still. Guys like Boston Scott, Damian Harris, Chase Edmonds. So we might play the roulette game here and see if another one falls to us. But the fact that we can still get Tom Brady, we're just falling into the best. Think about the NFC South defenses, man. I really don't trust them worth a damn. So I'm going to show you guys a cool little stat that I like to look up. If you type in fantasy points allowed by defense, type in fantasy points allowed by defense on Google, and then you're going to look for the Pro Football Reference link. So you go ahead and click that, and this is going to show you. You can click on your position, but we want to see quarterbacks. So this is going to show you the worst defenses against quarterbacks for fantasy last year. So you can filter by fantasy points. I think DraftKings is, they got a point boost, but I'm just going to filter here by fantasy points. And if we look at the NFC South defenses here, so you got Atlanta, Tampa Bay, and then Carolina. So all these teams are, below average. And the New Orleans Saints even too. So all 4 of these defenses are in the bottom half of the league. I really think Carolina's going to struggle. No Luke Kuechly, not a lot of new veteran or old veterans to rely on in the defense. So I think Carolina's going to struggle this year, definitely on the running game too. But none of the passing defenses scare me in the NFC South. So you could legit devise a draft plan where you're just drafting NFC South players. And then sprinkle in, your Ravens or your Chiefs or, a couple guys here and there. But I love targeting the NFC South. The defenses are not great. Same thing with the NFC East. Those defenses for pass defenses, I don't believe are very good. So we see the Giants up the top, the Redskins, Philly's pretty decent here, and then the Cowboys. So they're kind of middle of the pack. But you can feast on, you can feast on the Giants and the Washington football team. A couple other divisions here. The Cardinals were the worst, but then you got teams like, Oakland's down here, Las Vegas, my bad. Cleveland and Cincinnati. That's another push, to take guys like Lamar Jackson and Ben Roethlisberger. If you just kind of take a look at it. Again, I just typed in fantasy points allowed by defense, and then I clicked on the Pro Football Reference link. So you can go ahead. I think DraftKings scoring is PPR leagues. So you see Carolina. This really helps you just kind of target players. This is like a team like Carolina is like one of the worst, easily the worst against the run. And then you kind of just see some of the other teams here. And I like targeting teams, running backs that have a lot of these players on a lot of these teams on their schedule. So just another tool that I use. I'll probably try to show that off another time too, where I have more material prepared. But anyways, we are moving along here. It looks like we are at the end of the 10th round. How many players we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is our 10th round. Josh Allen's still on the board. I can't believe it. The quarterbacks are falling, guys. Running backs available. I do like Boston Scott. I do like Damian Harris. Let's just do our due diligence at the tight end spot. Noah Fant, Rob Gronkowski. We can take Gronk here if we really wanted to. We'll see if we can get him. But Mecole Hardman, we're going to take a super high upside guy here, Mecole Hardman. At this point in the draft, you're basically just throwing darts, and you need to get really good players and really good offenses. And if anything, Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill are already kind of dinged up. If anything happens to those guys and Mecole Hardman kind of becomes the dude, it's going to be a really good time. And if you look at what Mecole Hardman did last year, I think he only had like 26 catches. But again, a lot of people don't realize this is Mecole Hardman didn't even play wide receiver in high school. He was a cornerback. I think his first couple of years in college, he even was a corner. So what happened with him is he converted to wide receiver, I think his sophomore, junior year. So he's still very raw, and it sounds like he's taking the next step forward, working on. He's always a deep vertical threat, but it's just the things that I've heard is he's been working on his intermediate and short routes and just talking to Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins. So you see last year, 26 receptions on 41 targets, over 500 yards, 20.7 yards per catch, and 6 touchdowns. He kind of was in between. He kind of faded at the end of last year, but when Tyreek Hill was out, he put up some big games. So he's basically just another bet on a potential player taking the next step forward. We're just going to go ahead here and take Rob Gronkowski. So now our tight end room is great. We got George Kittle and Rob Gronkowski. We're pairing Gronk with Tom Brady. That's a good little stack right there. So it looks like we got 3 more flex players to take, and I'm just kind of just going to be moving around here. We'll probably need a running back or 2. There's some guys here that stick out to me, whether that's Naheem Hines, Boston Scott, Jerick McKinnon, Josh Kelly, A.J. Dillon. Basically, at this point in the draft, you have to be willing to accept the fact that these picks, they can win your league for you, or these picks, you can take a guy and this could be the guy that you cut to pick up the guy that can win your league, in the first couple of weeks of the season. So don't really overthink it. There's some receivers here, but again, we already have 5 pretty solid receivers. We might add 1 more receiver with these picks, because I think I have a name for you guys. If you hold on to the end here, I have a name who I think everyone should be drafting with their last pick in drafts this year. And if you've watched any of my other stuff, you probably know who this player is. But he's definitely a receiver. His football team's not very good, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So we really don't need to draft a tight end. I think we got, maybe the number 1, number 2 tight end in Kittle. We got Gronkowski here. Our receiver room, again, we'll start at the top. A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Tyler Boyd, Deontay Johnson, and Mecole Hardman. So Deontay Johnson and Mecole Hardman are project receivers. I think Deontay Johnson is going to be more consistent and a guy that we can use in our flex. And we'll see if Hardman can do anything. But then we got the rookie running back, J.K. Dobbins, who I think we really don't know what's going to happen with Mark Ingram next year. So if you're in a keeper league or any kind of dynasty draft, J.K. Dobbins next year, he's really got the ability to be as high as like a first or second round pick, depending on how good he looks this year. Um, so again, Mark Ingram's like 31 or 30 years old or something. So I just think J.K. Dobbins might have the fresh legs down towards the end of the season, and we could really see him develop into a strong RB2 at the end of the year. So I love J.K. Dobbins. We only have 3 running backs, so we really need to probably look at running backs here. The one that sticks out the most to me is Boston Scott, running back for the Eagles. He had a hell of a run the last 3 or 4 weeks as the RB2 last year in Philadelphia. We'll look at his stats in a second here after we take him. But we'll go ahead here and snag Boston Scott. We'll go ahead and look at his Keystone Scott. Boston Scott, FF today. And we're looking here. So he averaged 9 fantasy points per game, but it's basically from week 14 to week 17 that we're looking at. 24.8 fantasy points, 13.5, 7.9, 35.8. And this is all with Miles Sanders playing, guys. It's not a duo, but when they get Miles Sanders his breaks, Boston Scott's getting the ball. So I love everything about him. A.J. Dillon here is an interesting pick. He would be more of like a handcuff kind of guy. But I'm just looking for value here now. I want to make sure no one's getting anything too crazy. Dallas Goedert might be a really good guy to whip on our bench. Wide receivers here, no one's sticking out majorly. Let's go ahead here, and we're just going to go ahead here and take our last running backs. I think A.J. Dillon could be a guy. That's Aaron Jones insurance. But again, you're basically just taking a handcuff at this point. We're going to take Chase Edmonds because I think he's got a little bit more clear path to work. I love Kenyon Drake, but Kenyon Drake has not shown us the ability to be that lead running back for a full season. So he's been bounced around. He's had different coaches, and this was really the first coaching staff that gave him the ball as much as they did. So we love Kenyon Drake. I think he got traded to Arizona week 9. He kind of blew it up here. And then he had these massive touchdown games, 4 touchdowns and 2 touchdowns, weeks 15 and 16. But the only reason they traded for Kenyon Drake is because they needed to. David Johnson was hurt and ailing. You see week 5, they start to see what Chase Edmonds can do with 17.6 fantasy points and then 14.7. And again, this is only on 8 carries and 3 receptions. So that's 11 touches, and then 5 carries, 2 receptions. That's 7 touches. So literally in about 8 to 9 touches a game, he was getting touchdowns. And then week 7, when David Johnson started and then he didn't play, basically he just destroyed the New York Giants. 3 rushing touchdowns, 126 yards. Basically just the Cardinals were smitten with him, so much so that they gave him the starting job against the New Orleans Saints, but he unfortunately in the first quarter tweaked the hamstring pretty bad, resulting in them needing a running back because David Johnson was still hurt. But these guys, the Cardinals were comfortable giving David Johnson or giving Chase Edmonds the RB1 role. So there was some blurbs about him being mentioned as, being able to be a running back one in the NFL. So I really think Chase Edmonds should be on one of your late round draft plans for sure. So we have a defensive kicker to get yet, but I'm going to go ahead here and take my favorite probably sleeper. I mean, we could take another running back here, whether it's like Dare Ogunbowale or A.J. Dillon, Josh Kelly. These guys are – so these are some names that you might have to monitor on the waiver wire. Josh Kelly, A.J. Dillon, Carlos Hyde, Bryce Love, DeAndre Washington's the number 2 running back in Kansas City, I believe. So Darrell Williams, like these guys are going to be competing for the backup spot to Clyde. Ito Smith and Brian Hill. If anything happens, Todd Gurley's already limping, guys. So if anything happens there, it's going to be a good time. And then you got, we do have James Conner. So the backup to James Conner is going to be Benny Snell Jr. I'm trying to look for him. Maybe someone grabbed him already. Benny Snell. Let's see if I can pick Pittsburgh. Oh, I took Philadelphia. So Benny Snell Jr. Someone drafted Benny Snell. Wow, round 13. So that's interesting. I really don't feel comfortable drafting and holding on to handcuffs. mean, Chase Edmonds kind of an exception because I know how good he can be in that offense. And J.K. Dobbins is more than handcuffed too. These guys are probably more 50-50 plays. So I know that if anything happens to one of my running backs, I'm probably just going to spend a lot of money on them, in the waiver wire for that week. And you guys should be playing free waiver wire free agent auction or whatever. It's like FAAB, FOB money. You guys should be having some kind of auction waiver wire for your players. It's the most fair way to do it. Don't be doing it inverse order of standings. That's kind of whack. So now we basically have completed the draft. I'm going to go ahead here and we'll just look at defenses. The defense that I've been recommending to people, and I'll show you why in a second, but we're going to take the Indianapolis Colts here, hopefully. I like to look at schedule when I'm picking these out. I'm probably going to cut the video off after I pick this defense. You guys can figure out kickers on your own. Just pick good kickers and good offenses and you'll be fine. But the Colts schedule, look at it on ESPN. So we're almost up to pick here. It looks like we do get the Colts. I'm expecting a good year for the Colts. So let me just kind of read this off. There's week 1, Jacksonville. Week 2, Minnesota. Week 3, New York Jets. Week 4, Chicago. Week 5, Cleveland. Week 6, Cincinnati. Week 8, Detroit. So, I mean, they have a good chance of winning 5 or 6 of those games. So that's just kind of why I've been taking the Colts. I know it gets a little bit tougher down the stretch, but you should be able to, within those 7-8 weeks, you guys should be able to figure out another defense plan or make a move for somebody else. So, but yeah, I think that's going to do it for this video. If you liked what I'm putting out, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Again, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to be I'm trying to put out a video every day the rest of the, until Labor Day weekend. I think it's like Friday the 4th or something. I have the biggest draft of my fantasy football season is Sunday the 6th. We always do it on Labor Day. So I'll probably make a video just showing you guys what I ended up taking in my home league, and we'll go from there. But again, I'm putting out videos every day the rest of the way. And if you have questions or you need a specific answer to a question, hit me up on Twitter or leave a comment below, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. But yeah, thank you so much. Have a good one.